a lot of things, you don't do each one exceptionally well. Everyone thinks they're fantastic at multitasking. Numerous studies have shown that women tend to be better at multitasking than men, but both men and women are not the fantastic multitaskers that they think they are.
Hey, girlfriends. Welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha
and Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
All right, before we jump into our first segment, we do have a very special guest on today's episode. You've definitely heard me talk about her before. I think a couple of episodes back where I was referring to her podcast episode, Riches Are in the Niches. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much, Samaria, and thank you, Miosha, for having me as a guest on your podcast. I have listened to a number of episodes, and I definitely love the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. So it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Stacey Ann Taylor, and I am the very proud owner of the law office of Stacey Ann Taylor LLC here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a business and trademark attorney, and I love helping entrepreneurs basically just get their stuff together through trademark registration, contract negotiation, and drafting, that kind of thing. So that is what I do.
Love it. And I've said this to you before, but I really want to start a business just so I can have you be my lawyer. Like your Instagram page, I absolutely love, and everything that you present. I listen to your podcast and learn a whole lot from it too. So yeah, one of these days we're going to work together in that capacity.
Yes, it will be so. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to jump into our first segment, which is called Girl, What's Good? And in this segment, we talk about things that we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. It could be a book, a bottle of wine, a store. So since we have a special guest today, we will let Stacey Ann kick us off. So, girl, what's been good with you?
Well, I'm a little bit late to this party, like a few seasons late, because I think it's on season 3, but I love the show Succession on HBO. It is about the Roy family. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, they're basically it's essentially a family of media moguls, really centered around the patriarch named Logan Roy, and it is some, I don't know, it's like a dramedy. It's like dark comedy and drama, and sometimes you feel uncomfortable for laughing at certain things, but you're supposed to laugh because it's like ridiculous. Um, so it's very intriguing, and I put off participating in watching this show with the rest of the world, but I finally gave in. My boyfriend and I finally gave in this year. It's so good, so good.
I I can't wait to check it out. Maybe over my break in December, because I feel like I'm always so late, especially to HBO shows. Like Euphoria is on HBO, right? Or was on.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't
yes.
seen that yet. Like, if it's not Insecure and it comes on HBO, I probably haven't seen it. So I need to step my game up and enjoying that party too.
Yeah, Succession is definitely one of those shows that's been coming up as a you need to watch. So I guess I'll give in and give it a shot.
It's good. It'll hook you.
And I like that it has 3 seasons because, like I hate starting a show and then it's the first season and now I have to commit for another
Yes.
few years. Like, so start me late every time. Miosha, let's go with you.
Well, what's been good with me is our insecure reviews. I have been getting my whole life, and of course, I wish we would have started this podcast sooner, but I wish that we would have start reviewing it in earlier seasons because I feel like this last season is just going by so fast, and I've thoroughly been enjoying myself every Monday night on our Instagram where we go live and we recap and review the episode. And yeah, I just wish we had more episodes and we would have started sooner, but nonetheless, I've been enjoying what we have been able to do. So y'all tune in on Mondays on Instagram, Girlfriends and Goals Podcast.
Yes, and I especially love when we put it on YouTube after, and that's where we get most of our views on our review. And the comments from last week's episode were just so many, first of all, but very engaged. Like people had so much to say, so it was really fun responding to those. But yeah,
Yes,
so.
I love that. We had a couple of essays and I got my life.
Exactly. So, what's good with me is hip hop step aerobics. So, within the last couple of months, I decided, hey, you need to figure out what you're going to do for workouts. I do not enjoy working out. I just do it because I think it's just necessary. And so I wanted to find something that I would enjoy doing, and I started watching hip hop step aerobics videos. Obviously, the first time I did it, I was a little bit of, I was a little bit lost. I didn't know all the steps, but it's been a few months now, and I really enjoy it. I watched this guy. I think his channel on YouTube is called Get Fit with DG. And so, like, I feel like those people who dance with him are my friends. I feel like I'm in the studio with them, and so, yeah, it's been a really good time. So if anybody, especially as we come on the new year, people are looking for ways to stay fit for, and have fun, I would absolutely recommend hip hop step aerobics.
I know you've already told me that you want me to get a step, but I don't know if you remember this. This was like freshman, sophomore year, but I used to go to step classes at Georgia State. I don't know if you would remember that because I don't think we were as close during that time, but I actually used to go in person. And step is fun, but if you're not comfortable with the step, it can take you a class or two just to like get comfortable, learn your way around, know the different cues so you're not tripping over the step. But it is fun once you like actually get in the groove of it.
Yeah, have you tried it, Stacey, in the step aerobics?
No, because I don't have the best like hand-eye coordination.
Okay.
So like I always dream of falling off the step. I'd be willing to try it though. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fun. With the first video I did, I thought, oh, this is just, maybe a beginner's one. But now that I know enough, I'm like, wait, why was that my very first video I tried? Because they were doing some advanced steps. And I think initially I was just like, well, you just need to learn them. I didn't think, oh, there might be easier videos. I thought I liked the music on this video, they're getting it. So I need to just stick it up, suck it up and learn what it is that they're doing. So I stuck with it, and it's really good now.
Look at you diving in head first. I'm proud of you.
I would say I'm a pro, but I'm not. I'm definitely not yet.
So, we're going to jump into today's topic, which is called Not Doing Too Much and Knowing When and How to Turn Things Down. And so, we wanted to cover this topic because we know naturally as we progress throughout womanhood and as we get older, that we will take on more things. We will commit to more. But we wanted to talk about when sometimes our extreme productivity or doing it all could really just be us just doing the most. And sometimes it could just be the best option to turn things down or say things no for many different reasons. This topic is also very relevant, I think, just as we prepare for the new year. And many of us are sitting down, writing down new goals, things that we want to accomplish. So we want to just explore finding, I guess, the right balance. And so we have Stacey Ann on today to help us explore this topic. And so I guess we'll just start with you, Stacey Ann. Why do you think it is that society values people who take on doing a lot of things?
I think particular to Western society because I think in other cultures you're actually not held in high esteem for doing too much and burning yourself out. People look at you like you're stupid. So I mean, I think it's just one of those. I think it's something specific to Western society, and I'm not quite sure. It probably is, quite frankly, it's probably tied into just capitalism in general, and just kind of the sort of the systems that we have in place in Western society, not just I'm just talking about Western society in general, not just in this country, the systems that we have in place to provide for and take care of each other, even the governmental systems, all of that. I think it basically rewards you for doing too much. And then I don't even want to, I didn't even touch on like social media and like the echo chamber that we're all in, and it's getting magnified every day, all day. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm glad you brought up social media because this whole hustle culture thing, it is absolutely the worst. And it's like, yeah, we know that we have to work hard for things. You know, I don't think people outside of the Western world are like, oh no, life is just going to be easy. I'm going to be able to make money and do nothing. It's not like a culture of laziness, you know?
Right.
It's just that you understand that there must be a balance. And I think that is completely lost. Maybe not so much anymore. I think it's getting a little better, possibly with social media, but you still see the hustle culture people everywhere.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with what both of you all said. In addition to, I think that there's a lot of value on being just like multifaceted, and how it starts from a very young age where school age children or high schoolers are praised so much for being like, oh, well, my child is in violin, they're the high school track star, and they're the spelling bee champ. And, I think part of that is just, parents being excited and proud of their children. But there's a lot of value, I think, in just having your hand in a lot of different buckets, because it's seen as not a good thing if you put all your eggs, I guess, in one basket. When that doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be successful at that one thing. I just think there's a high value of just like spreading yourself thin.
Definitely. And I would add to that even, I mean, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Jamaica. My parents are immigrants, and immigrant culture as well. There is a high value placed on achievement, specifically overachievement. And I don't know if I'm like a recovering overachiever. I kind of lean into my overachievement at times, but I think as I've aged, I've just learned how to put things in perspective, which is what, maturity and having more experiences should do for you as you get older.
Yeah, look, this whole immigrant culture is it's so real. But you know what's interesting about all of this is that I often see people who have a lot of wealth, people who are praised in society, kind of like the heavy hitters. Like I feel like they relax quite often, you know? And so I'm just like, what are we really trying to do here? You know, like you don't even have a day off or a night off to be with your family. And these like billionaires are taking whole months or whatever. So really, what are you aspiring to at this point? You know, is hustle culture like not, I don't want to say the poor people's way, but the not so rich people's way of thinking like they can compensate for what they don't have. I don't know, it's just interesting to me.
And I love that you bring up like billionaires or people who have resources, because I think even for, I don't want to say regular people, but even when you feel like you really do need that time to take a break, there are certain structures or things in place where you can't even take it. So, maternity leave being basically non-existent, and women are having to rush back to work, or if a major life event happens grief wise and you need to take that time, is like, oh nope, you can't because it's company policy. So some of it is just what's normalized, just day-to-day culture and society, but then there are certain structural things in
Structural.
place where when you really do need it, these companies or things are just like, nope, you got to get back on the grind.
Yeah, and in some cases the government is actually helping them, right? So there are policies, I mean, just for the Family Medical Leave Act to pass decades ago was like a huge fight, and there are still aspects of wanting to take leave. I mean, something as simple as honestly like just a company offering personal time instead of sick time, right? Because with personal time off, you can take a day because you have a mental health issue that you don't want to see someone about to get, a letter that says, excuses you for being absent for work for 2 days or 3 days or whatever. But when you have sick time, it's tied to physical sickness, right? Personal time can be more general, and you can be more flexible in how you use it. Just simple things like that make a huge difference. Huge difference.
Absolutely. So I want to ask both of you ladies, how do you know you're doing too much? You can give me a personal story, but how do you know it's like, okay, I need to I need to go ahead and revisit what's happening in my life and make some changes?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Um, well, for me, I think I think whenever you're having a conversation about something as personal as like how you respond to something or how something impacts you, you have to kind of put it in context. So, I am in my 40s. I have been through quite a bit. Um, the main thing that I would say is there are two key things about my life that I think have a lot of bearing on how I know myself so well and how I know when to sit down and keep quiet, basically. And it's basically the fact that I've never been married and I don't have any children. So I've spent a lot of time by myself, like an amazing amount of time by myself into my 40s. And so I know myself very, very well. And I think just that self knowledge has led me to the point where just when I can get certain sensations in my body or just know from like having certain repetitive thoughts that it's time for me to sit down and keep quiet, right? That I need some rest. Or even something as simple as like, oh, I may just need to go outside. I may just need to get some exposure to fresh air and sunshine. It doesn't have to be something really, really dramatic. I could just step outside in the yard. But I honestly attribute most of it to just having a lot of time to get to know myself, which is a luxury, and I do understand that in many ways. But because of it, I know exactly what the triggers are, and I can just kind of step back.
Ooh.
Nice.
I'll,
Yeah.
I I guess my way of knowing is so I think in the future quite a bit, um, more than the present. Something I started to work on, but I don't even know if I need to work on it anymore. I'll decide before 2022, but I'm always in the future. So if I'm in a situation now that I feel like will prevent me from getting to the future self that I have in mind, then I know that I need to like let it go. So if there are things in my life that prevent me from finishing a project that is of so much importance to me, then I know, okay, you need to cut this out. I'll never forget my first year of my PhD program, the very first semester. There was one day where there was just so much going on personally and academically. And I was like, you know what? I, I don't think I can make it to school today. Like I just felt my body was like, girl, go take a nap, go lay down. Have y'all seen that on social media where they're like, you need to go lay down? That was exactly what my body was saying. And I was like, you know what? I could miss these classes. Like, I'll get the information some other time. And it's not something I would normally do because I feel like I have to be there for everything. I don't want to miss stuff. But I'm like, you're in a different stage in your life. And this whole go, go, go mentality clearly is not going to work. And since that semester, I take one day a week where I don't do anything academic at all. I sometimes just stay in my bed. The only time I get up is like brush my teeth, eat, use the restroom, get back in bed because I couldn't keep on going like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I know. How about you, Miosha?
Yeah, I'd say if I resent whatever it is that I'm doing. So, yes, you may go through periods of time where you're like uneasy about something, or obviously it requires a lot of work or energy to accomplish said thing. But I think if something is ongoing and I don't look forward to it, I am thinking of all the ways to get out of it. While it's going on, I'm thinking about when is it going to be over? Like, that's a clear sign that, hey, this is probably something that I shouldn't be doing, or I should be working towards figuring out a way to change something about it so that I could feel better about it. And then, as far as just like a personal story, I know for me, when I've been doing too much, it can quickly show itself physically for me. And I know that when I'm like very stressed out over a longer period of time, like my body will start to show me signs like, hey, this is something that you need to stop doing, get back to the drawing board, figure it out. But my body will tell me. And I've just learned, as Stacey Ann said, like you just learn your body and yourself over time as you mature. And either you physically know or in your mind, you know when there's just time for a change or to stop doing as much.
Yeah.
So, Stacey Ann, I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the pros and cons to doing a lot of things? And what are some of the benefits that you see of niching down?
Great question. So the let's start with the pros of doing a lot of things. It can give you Doing a lot of things can give you the sense that you've accomplished a lot, right? That is definitely a pro. It can help boost your confidence in that way because you feel like, okay, I got 6 things done today. That's fantastic. It can make you feel more confident as well, that you know a bit about a bunch of perhaps different topics, especially if we're talking about doing a lot of things as it relates to like your work or your business, something like that. So I would say those are the pros. That kind of summarizes for me like what the main pros are. I'm sure there are others. But in terms of the cons, generally speaking, when you do a lot of things, you don't do each one exceptionally well. Everyone thinks they're fantastic at multitasking. Numerous studies have shown that women tend to be better at multitasking than men, but both men and women are not the fantastic multitaskers that they think they are. And so, it definitely probably impacts quality of your output of your work when you do a lot of stuff. So you just have to weigh the pros and cons. I mean, sometimes you just don't have a choice. Sometimes you don't have any help or assistance, and you just have to execute. And that just is what it is. Um, and in terms of the benefits of niching down, you really get to master something. If you niche down to one or two subject matters or practice areas, or work what is the word that I'm looking for? Basically, subject matter or practice area. Um, if you niche down to one or two things, you get the opportunity to master those things extremely well because you're working on them all the time. And so you can really spend a lot of your energy getting to know those topics like the back of your hand. And then, another benefit of niching down is marketing, especially if you are someone who owns your own business like I am. When you niche down, you are marketing about the same one or two things all the time. And marketing, a lot of marketing, successful marketing depends on repetitive messaging, right? And so it's easier to repeat your messaging if you're only talking about one or two things to begin with. So I would say those are probably um, those are probably the main benefits. And by the way, mastering something also boosts confidence as well. So niching down and mastering one or two things is another way to boost your confidence. And that's a different, in my opinion, from my experience, it's a different kind of confidence boost because you've truly mastered those one or two things rather than, sort of halfway mastered 6 things. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said about mastering things because it's even if you're just a person that's looking for a specific service or someone to provide a thing for you, you probably want to go to the master of that said thing and not the person who's doing a little bit of everything, which they could, I'm sure, do it well, but they wouldn't necessarily be a master at that one service or thing or idea that you're looking into.
Yeah, this also comes into play since we're in such a social media world, but with like people's social media pages, like that's something that is essential, knowing, what niche audience like you're trying to target. Like if I come to your page and you're telling me that you're a fashion page, but I only see one fashion post, and then I see your real estate content, I see your I don't know, minimalist content, your whatever. If I see so many different things, I'm like, well, I came here for your like fashion videos, and I don't even see many of those. So I don't really think this is what I want. This isn't why I came here. And so I'm going to go and find somebody else who gives me what I want, who feeds whatever it is that I came here for. So you already know, I loved that episode that you did about niching down. But I just want to say it because social media is such a huge part of our world. And there are a lot of people who are creating. It's something that we even have to ask ourselves with the podcast page, like what is it that we're trying to accomplish here, and how can we do that? And niching down is definitely one of those ways.
Yes, yes. I would say though that listening to your podcast, I mean, I think every episode that you've put out so far has been in keeping with the title of your podcast and the topic. I mean, everything to me is related to girlfriends and goals, which, that's really important because it's hard not to go off on a tangent sometimes, especially sometimes when you're podcasting.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think too, just especially when you're in that building phase, right? How Samaria mentioned how you go to a page and it's just like a little bit of everything. Or I've noticed with YouTubers over time where they may have started out in beauty and then now they're doing cooking videos. I mean, it's all lifestyle related, but
Mhm.
two very different types of content. But I think when you're in that building phase, or even if the current niche that you're in is on the downturn for whatever reason outside of you, it can get very tempting to start to look outside of your main area just to, I guess you could say, put fuel back in the engine.
Yes.
And so I don't necessarily think that that's wrong in the short term, but long term, you could just end up losing your core audience and just spreading yourself very thin.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of YouTubers who I'll say natural hair YouTubers, like it's really a struggle these days because it's like, okay, how many twist outs can you do? How many wash and
Mhm.
goes can you do? And
Yeah.
so I think a few of them are currently just figuring out what is it that I need to do to keep my core audience engaged, but also to grow because it's hard out here. And it's much easier if you have a million subscribers already and they're pretty much just there for you,
Yeah.
so whatever you do, they're going to show up and be like, I love it, do more of whatever you want to do. But yeah, it is really difficult when you are like still building your platform.
Yeah. So, Stacey Ann, if you're struggling with what things to keep on your plate or things that you need to take off of your plate, where would you suggest is a good place to start?
So I'm a big believer in operating in your zone of genius. And I mean, I'm speaking about this from the perspective of, if you're employed or if you're in school or if you own your own business. But this can really be used in a lot of different areas, the same thought process. Basically, you need to be focused on the things that you really enjoy doing, and the things that you do not enjoy doing, as soon as possible, get them off your plate. And I understand that there, you're going to be restricted somewhat by, your own income, and there are things that will not, you're not going to be able to get everything you don't like off your plate,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're a billionaire, then you can really get everything off your plate. But nonetheless, I would very much encourage you to examine, just your own thought process when you're doing something. Is it something you enjoy? If you're in school, for example, and all the work that you've been doing for the last semester or the last year, none of it excites you, I would submit that you might be studying the wrong subject matter. You should really be trying to focus on things that ignite a spark within you. Not everything. I mean, nobody probably likes taking out the trash. I mean, there are some things that, it just is. It's just a chore. Nobody really likes to do it necessarily, but it's fine. But the bigger things in your life, your job, the courses that you're taking, your major in college, whatever, those things should ignite a spark in you. And you will not like every single thing about your job or your schooling or anything. And I understand that, but like it should be more likely than not that the things you are doing bring some sort of spark to your life. And so I would just start there. Just really do a pro and con list of whatever it is that you are experiencing, whether it's your current job, your major at college. In my case, I'm a business owner. Just literally do a pro and con list. And if you have more cons than pros, you're doing the wrong thing. I mean, you're truly, you are doing and it's hard to swallow, and you may not be able to extricate yourself from doing the wrong thing, in the near future.
Mhm.
But you need to try your best to extricate yourself within a reasonable amount of time, maybe a year or two.
I have a question just about your career. So,
Mhm.
were you working in a space where you felt like, okay, I have to get out and do my own thing and become this entrepreneur? Like, what led to that for you?
So I was at my previous job before I started this firm July 31st, 2020. So it's not been 2 years yet. The law office of Stacey Ann Taylor LLC. In my previous position, I was with a company that had $500 million in revenue and sold all kinds of building products like adhesives and sealants and like exterior building products. And basically, they essentially eliminated my position. I think that's the yeah. So yeah, take that for what you will. But they eliminated my position. So I wasn't fired. They just eliminated my position. To me, that's almost one and the same. But I guess there is a distinct difference for HR purposes. And they eliminated my position as well as a number of other people's positions in a cost saving measure. So what happened after that was basically that they gave me a package, a severance package. It was actually a good package. I'm not going to lie. It was actually a good package, but I renegotiated it and I got an even better package. So,
Yes.
Hey.
I got a better package and it basically bought me some time. And with the better package, I also got like, I don't know, like either 3 or 4 months of career coaching. And it was during that time working with a career coach that the career coach, who was phenomenal, basically made me aware that I just do better if I have my own autonomy. That I don't really need to be working up under someone, especially like at this point in my career. I hadn't just left. It's not like I just left law school. Next year I'll be out of law school 20 years. So, um, she worked with me and helped me to realize that I should really basically try to do my own thing. And I think because of where I was in my life, I just kind of had the courage and the wherewithal. And again, I'm only responsible for myself, which is why from time to time I mention that, because I have my life experiences are different, right? They're not necessarily what everyone's life experiences would be at 40 something, having your position eliminated. So most people, when that happens, they have to think of their spouse and their children, all that. I don't have to think about that. So I could leap. So I leaped. And here I am.
I absolutely love that because one, of course, you're not recommending, hey, everybody take this path, because
Right.
there is that aspect of like, in whatever you're doing,
Mhm.
sometimes you just do have to do what you got to do, and I've definitely felt that where I'm pursuing this thing, but money has to come from somewhere. So now I have to, in my pursuit of this thing, also add more things to my plate just to make this dream work. So, that happens. And like she said, her story might not be everybody's, but I love hearing that story. And I definitely admire the courage, because it does still take courage, even if it is just like you. I think it takes a lot of courage. But one thing that I really felt was this whole, like you work better maybe just doing your own thing, because I I felt that to my core, like not obviously with the podcast, this is perfect, but in other things that I do, I'm just like, just lock me in a room and just let me do what I need to do, come up with what I need to come up. I will reach out when I need help. I will, phone a friend, whatever. But this whole, oh, everybody has to be in the mix, I'm not in favor of it too much for me personally.
Mhm.
I wanted to go back to any advice that you might have, Miosha, or what you might have seen as the pros or cons of doing a lot.
Yeah. So I think the question was if you're struggling with things that you want to keep or take off of your plate. And I definitely agree with a lot of what Stacey Ann had to say. Uh, I'd add that I think you should just take some time to evaluate like what things are actually fulfilling to you in your life, and is it meeting the goals that you're hoping to accomplish? And then if not, will you be at peace if you stop doing it? So I also think it goes back to earlier where I was talking about like if you're doing something and you're resenting it, like if you don't like the process of it and it's been a decent amount of time, like that's just a big red flag. Like, hey, that's something that could come off. And I think this is just a reoccurring theme in the podcast where we've talked about how you should be working towards building the life that you really want for yourself, not for anyone else. So just evaluating, like, hey, is this fulfilling what I need it to do in my life?
Mhm.
What's the goal here? Am I happy with the goal? Okay, if this comes off of my plate, am I perfectly fine? Or is this just busy work?
Yeah, reflection was a huge one for me too. And I also wanted to add, like, just because you choose to prioritize something, that doesn't mean you have to get rid of everything else. So you can still do different things, but you just have to be realistic with yourself. Can I do all of these things at the same level? Probably not. And then you have to, a decision has to be made, what thing will be most beneficial to me to pursue right now. So maybe 80% of my time has to be that thing. And I might have to put this thing to the side and do this thing like 20%. So you just have to have those conversations with yourself and be extremely realistic about what it is that you can and cannot balance at any given time.
Yeah. And I'd say, just going back to the whole social media piece, like, we're just seeing one, vision of what's going on. And typically it's like what they want us to see. And so you may see people who look like they're doing it all, they have it all, but you really won't know like the quality and the fulfillment that they're getting out of doing all of those different things.
Mm.
And so it's like, if you don't have, a way to access the entire picture and just like what doing it all means for them. And if they're satisfied with the outcomes, then you may just want to take a step back and say, okay, I could be doing it all, but I definitely don't want to be basing it off of like what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So finally, I just wanted to ask both of you if there's any advice that you might have for women your age or younger women about like doing fewer things and doing them well, or any advice that you have on like turning things down or saying no because an opportunity might not be the best for you and where you are at the moment.
I definitely strongly believe that you are your best advocate. Really, no one knows you better than you do, except maybe God. That's it, because God created you. But I mean, no one knows you better than you do. So you have to be your own advocate. And unfortunately, in life, you will have you will have people who try to take advantage of you. And so you have to be comfortable with standing up for yourself and drawing a line in the sand when you are uncomfortable with something someone asks you to do or puts you in an awkward situation where you feel like maybe your integrity is at stake. You're just going to have to say no. I mean, no is truly a complete sentence. And um, no one is going to understand the impact that someone's behavior or someone asking you to do something that is outside your core values. No one is going to understand that better than you will. And no one is going to have to live with the consequences of whatever that action is like you will. So all of those things need to be going through your head when something in your spirit just tells you, this isn't right for me. You're worried about embarrassing the person or hurting their feelings, but what about hurting you? Like, what about hurting yourself? I
Yeah.
mean, you are your best advocate. So that is really that is probably my best piece of advice on just learning how to say no and learning how to put yourself first.
Yeah, Miosha?
I love that. I'd say that you should keep in mind that there's nothing wrong with having downtime. And so I think sometimes we can feel bad or that we're not doing enough if we have time to relax, time for self care. But I think it's underestimated sometimes how much that can aid in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish by having that downtime to think, relax, recharge your body, your mind. And so just keep that in mind that having that time is not a bad thing. We all have to recharge. We all need enough sleep. We all need enough rest to take on, those things that we want to do really well. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. How can you show up the best version of yourself if you're not taking care of you? So this quote, it was actually a status or a caption. Ooh, I'm getting my social medias mixed up. My social media, because that's the plural. Okay. But I'm getting them mixed up. But Mrs. Kevin on stage, who, if you listen to the podcast, you know I follow, like, she posted this caption that said, I'm learning the difference between turning down an opportunity and a distraction. Opportunity pushes you toward destiny. Distraction delays you. When you know your final destination, the difference is clear. Without the end goal, everything looks like an opportunity. And so the piece of advice that I would give based on that is to really take time to distinguish what is an opportunity and what is a distraction. And as far as saying no, I think it depends on whether you want to just say no to this opportunity right now, because it doesn't work with where you are in this moment. Because if it's something that you feel like, oh, in the future, I'd be interested in this, then there's a way to say no. It might be, hey, I have some projects on my desk right now that I'm trying to complete. So right now isn't the right time for me. But if there's any opportunity in the future, please reach out to me. Versus if it's like, absolutely not, this is not something that aligns up with my final destination, then, you know, there's no harm in saying, hey, this doesn't align with where I'm going, so I'm gonna have to say no. Or, hey, that's not something I can commit to, period. Don't say right now, because people will circle back on you. They'll be like, hey, I know you said you couldn't do that in January, but it's March. Can you? No. So just cut out that right now. And I do this a lot of times because I have a problem with this. So I will spend an hour doing an email just because I want to make sure that I'm communicating what I can handle and what I can't. So yeah, that would be my little tidbit. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like this video. Also, our time together does not have to end here. You've heard our thoughts on this topic, but we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals Podcast, where we'll continue this conversation throughout the next week. Until next time, bye.
Bye.